In 1971, the world changed, but not because of a war or a revolution. It changed because of a phone call. Richard Nixon sat in the Oval Office and effectively decoupled the US dollar from gold. In that moment, money stopped being a thing you find in the ground and started being a promise written on a piece of paper. Since then, we've been living in the greatest era of wealth creation in human history. But there's a shadow following that wealth. It's a number so large it's difficult for the human brain to process. $300 trillion. That is the total global debt. To put that in perspective, if you spent $1 every single second, it would take you nearly 10 million years to pay it off. Most people hear the word debt and think of credit cards or mortgages. They think of it as a personal burden. But at the scale of nations and central banks, debt isn't a burden. It's the fuel. The entire global economy is now a giant engine that only runs on credit. If we stop borrowing, the engine seizes. If we borrow too much, the engine explodes. We are currently floorboarding the gas pedal, and the check engine light has been taped over. Why does this matter right now? Because for 40 years, we had a safety net, falling interest rates. Whenever the system hit a snag, we just made borrowing cheaper. It was the ultimate get-out-of-jail-free card. But that card has been played. We've reached the end of the line where the math no longer squares with reality. To understand how we got here, you have to understand the alchemy of modern banking. Most people think banks take deposits and lend that money out. That's a polite fiction we tell children. In reality, banks create money when they issue a loan. When you buy a house for $500,000, that money didn't exist the day before. The bank typed it into a computer. This is the fractional reserve system, a masterpiece of financial engineering that allows us to build cities and jumpstart industries. It works perfectly as long as the economy grows faster than the debt. It's a race. On one side, you have human productivity, factories, software, coffee shops. On the other side, you have the interest on the debt. For a long time, productivity was winning. But around the year 2008, the lead narrowed. The global financial crisis wasn't just a housing bubble. It was the moment the debt became so heavy the engine started to smoke. Our solution was to double down. We printed more, borrowed more, and pushed interest rates to zero, and in some places, even below zero. Think about the absurdity of a negative interest rate. It is a world where you lend someone $100 and they pay you back $99. It's a world where time has no value. The mechanism that keeps this going is called rolling over. No government actually intends to pay back its national debt. That's not the goal. The goal is to pay the interest and, when the principal comes due, just issue new debt to pay off the old debt. It's a global game of musical chairs. As long as the music plays, as long as people believe the promises, the chairs stay in place. But the music is getting distorted. The uncomfortable math is this. We are now at a point where many developed nations are spending a massive chunk of their tax revenue just to pay the interest on what they've already borrowed. They aren't building bridges or funding schools with that money. They are just servicing the past. When a country reaches this stage, they have three choices. Option 1 is austerity. Spend less, pay it down. This is politically impossible. No one gets elected by promising to make life harder today so that the math works in 30 years. Option 2 is default. Just stop paying. This is the nuclear option. It would collapse the global banking system overnight, wipe out pensions, and turn the world into a scene from a dystopian novel. That leaves option 3, inflation. If you owe someone $1 million and you can't pay it, you just make $1 million worth less. You print more money until the debt feels small. This is the invisible tax. It doesn't require a vote in Congress. It just happens at the grocery store and the gas station. It's a way of transferring wealth from the people who hold cash to the people who hold debt. The hype tells you that technology will save us, that AI or green energy will create so much growth that the $300 trillion will eventually look like pocket change. It's a comforting thought. We want to believe the genius of Silicon Valley can outrun the ledger of the central banks. The reality is more cynical. We are trapped in a feedback loop. To keep the system from collapsing, central banks must keep liquidity high. But high liquidity causes asset bubbles. It makes houses unaffordable for the young and concentrates wealth at the very top. This creates social friction. It creates the kind of internal pressure that historically leads to radical politics and instability. We aren't just looking at a financial problem. We're looking at a mathematical limit to a specific way of organizing society. Imagine a skyscraper where every year we add 10 new floors to the top, but we never reinforce the foundation. From the penthouse, the view is spectacular. The growth looks infinite. But in the basement, the pillars are beginning to crack under the sheer weight of the floors above. The $300 trillion time bomb isn't going to go off with a literal explosion. It's more likely to be a long, slow, grinding sound. It's the sound of a standard of living stagnating, of currencies losing their edge, and of a system that has borrowed so much from the future that there is nothing left for the present. The Great Moderation, that period of low inflation and steady growth we all grew up with, might have been an anomaly. It was a golden hour funded by a credit card we never intended to pay off. Now, the bill is arriving. We can try to ignore it. We can try to refinance it. We can even try to pretend the numbers don't matter because we owe it to ourselves. But math is cold. It doesn't care about narratives or political cycles. It only cares about the balance. So, the question isn't whether the debt can be paid. We already know the answer is no. The real question is, what happens to a civilization when it realizes it has already spent its future?